around the nation. TYD Nation. Jeff Wohl here. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday. Got a great show for you guys today. We'll have a little bit of fun. We got some fantastic Sharpie Gate stuff. If you're unfamiliar, which you should be by now, but if you're not, I'm going to show you what's going on. You're really going to enjoy these pictures. Super fun, also ridiculous, but that's the era that we live in. Then we have, of course, the case of corruption in the Trump administration. I know, shocked. Show me your shocked face. This is mine. Okay, not shocked, right? But we're going to talk about a former Trump interior official who now has a new job. Yeah, you're not going to be surprised that it's with fossil fuels. Then we have an update on Jacob Wohl. What has that crazy young man been up to lately? Getting charged with fraud. Not to give too much detail. We're going to get into it. Then we have AOC versus Steve King. That's an interesting story. And Bernie Sanders had a town hall yesterday, and one of his answers has conservatives outraged. So we'll talk about that and why I think Bernie Sanders might have gotten something wrong. And I'm going to explain what that is. I know, right? Imagine that. You can critique a politician that you actually like when you think he gets something wrong. So I'm going to dive into that. We'll save that for the rest of the show. Or the end of the show, I should say. So that's what we've got going on today on this Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. It's very important that you do so. Helps out the show. Also, liking, you like and share. Very important. I want to thank some patrons. So that's one way you can support the show. It's through patreon.com/TYDNation. So I'm going to go through some of the some of my bigger supporters. So I want to thank Abina Akufo Akoto, Alan Go, Alan Johnson, Bill McCabe, Brian Montez, and Brian Scheffler. So those are patrons that support the show, and you are, super members. So thank you to the super patrons that help the show. All right. And so I'm going to go through some more of those with the next couple of days, just to thank people who have been supporting us for a while and do so very substantially. So your support is more important than ever. And I want to thank you absolutely from the bottom of my heart for supporting the show and allowing me to continue to do this. Without you and without any of my supporters, I wouldn't be able to afford to do this. So thank you. All right. Also, I want to give a thanks to all the channel members as well. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do this as well. So, all right. Anyway, so let's get into the first story. Let's talk Sharpie Gate. All right. President Trump continues to double down on his prediction that Alabama is going to be hit by Hurricane Dorian. Spoiler alert, it's not. And he has gone yet, according to Donald Trump, no. Alabama is going to get a piece of it. That's what I've been saying the whole time. The National Weather Service, they're 100% wrong. He even went so far as to illegally alter a National Weather Service map in order to prove himself right. This is complete and total insanity, but these are the times that we live in. Let me show you the map here. Right here. So there's Trump. There's that map. It's about 5 days old, by the way. And you see that little black circle on Alabama? Yeah. That wasn't there before. That's not on the original map. Now, When asked if by a reporter if a Sharpie was used to add that little black loop going into Alabama, here's what Trump said. I don't know. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Did you add it in Sharpie or not? I mean, it could be a Sharpie. It might not be a Sharpie. I don't really know. I may have added it, or I might not have added it. Some people are saying that I could have added it because it's definitely going to hit Alabama, which could be the case. But those people, by the way, they're great people, and there are great people in Alabama, and there are great Sharpies. I love Sharpies. By the way, don't listen to the fake news media. They are totally anti Sharpie. Okay, the Sharpie never happened. It didn't exist. Fake news. Insanity. Complete and utter insanity. But this has been saga all week. Instead of, talking about Bahamas and how the Bahamas, one of the islands in the Bahamas is like 4 feet underwater, or 2 feet underwater, and there's been people that have been dying from the storm. Donald Trump's been talking about, oh no, I'm right because I said it was going to hit Alabama, but it's not actually going to hit Alabama. But don't listen to the Weather Service because they're wrong and they're part of the fake news media. Because of all of this, I'm convinced that we are living in the wrong timeline, in like the broken, worst timeline. I don't know what happened. But look, even though we are living in dystopian hellscape, at least we can have a little bit of fun on social media making fun of Donald Trump and Sharpie Gate. So I want to show you some pictures along with some of the tweets, just so we can laugh so we don't cry. Uh, so let's start out with Jason Almanis. And along with this picture, he says this, the truth finally comes out. See, it turns out he won by the popular vote by 3 million. Undeniable. Absolutely undeniable. There it is. All the proof that you will ever need. Bill Wong said Trump's planned addition to Mount Rushmore has been revealed. Look at that. It's natural. Perfect. Mark Nevada said, oh my God, the White House released a new photo of President Trump golfing. He's looking so fit and so toned. Impressive. It must be my great genes. Has to be. Carl says, just in, Trump releases photo that shows his massive hands. Dems apologize for being wrong. Hashtag SharpieGate. And finally, Trump releases photo showing how windmills cause cancer. You can see the cancer rays, right? Coming out from the windmills. Of course. It all makes sense now. It turns out, fake news, right? Yeah, windmills cause cancer. We got the proof right there. All sorts of proof. Now, these are awesome. And this hashtag, super funny. But there is actually another slightly hilarious, but also super telling thing about this. And that this actually changing this weather report, allegedly with a marker, might actually be a crime. For that, we go to two journalists, Dennis Merzorow and Jonathan Katz. Now, they point out that it is a federal crime to knowingly issue a counterfeit weather forecast or alter an official government weather forecast, which appears to be exactly what Trump has done. Specifically, 18 U.S. Code 2074, which I'm sure Donald Trump has never, ever heard of or read, which states that whoever knowingly issues or publishes any kind of weather forecast or warning of weather conditions, falsely representing such forecast or warning to have been issued or published by the Weather Bureau, United States Signal Service, or other branch of the government service, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 90 days, or both. 90 days in prison or fine. Hey, shocker, Donald Trump lied and broke the law. But then again, he said, I don't know. I don't know if it was changed by a Sharpie. I don't know. Some people are saying that. I don't know. I don't know. Come on, dude. You know he did it. Oh, okay. Look, I think there's a 95% chance that Donald Trump drew it in Sharpie. 5% chance that one of his sycophants that, sucks up to him all the time is like, Donald Trump said Alabama. Okay, it says Alabama. Look, Mr. President, you were right 100% of the time. And I said it was telling because he was willing. I think he's either willing to break the law to be right, which doesn't surprise me at all, but that's where it is, or that his subordinates, again, not a shocker, as we've seen it before, also break the law in order to help Donald Trump. Again, this is the situation the world that we live in now. We have a man-child as president, surrounded by a bunch of ass-kissing sycophants, and at this moment, can't do anything about it. Nancy Pelosi refuses to impeach, of course, for actual crimes that he may have committed. And nobody in the cabinet is left that will actually ever do the 25th Amendment. We're stuck with him until, or I should say, if the Democrats actually put up a candidate that will crush him, not just beat him, right? Because Joe Biden says, well, I could beat Donald Trump. No, we don't need to just beat Donald Trump. We need to absolutely crush him, destroy him double digits by 20 points. And I think Senator Bernie Sanders is the only one who's going to actually be able to do that. And that's if he's able to get through the primary without getting screwed over. Okay. Moving on. Let's go to some Trump corruption. Another former Trump administration official is landing a cushy job in an industry he just happened to help deregulate. No, because, draining the swamp. I mean, here's a question that I have, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Have you actually heard Donald Trump address the swamp now, as of late? I mean, talk about draining the swamp or how he's draining the swamp. Have you ever heard about that? I mean, look, he ran on that. He said it played well with the crowd. He didn't actually mean it, but he said it played well. But all I've been seeing from the Trump administration these past few years is just filling the swamp full of more swamp monsters. Now, one such monster was a man named Joe Balish. Now, Joe Balish oversaw oil and gas drilling on federal lands before resigning from the Department of Interior on Friday. Now, why did he resign? Because he decided to take a job with a foreign oil company who just happens to be expanding drilling operations on Alaska's North Slope. How convenient. Now, Washington Post explains Balish, who served as the Interior Department's Assistant Secretary for Land and Minerals Management for nearly 2 years, confirmed in a phone interview Tuesday that he will begin working for the Papua New Guinea-based Oil Search, which is developing one of Alaska's largest oil prospects in years. On Wednesday, Oil Search officials said he would become Senior Vice President for External Affairs in the company's Alaska operations, which, by the way, when Balish was working for the Interior Department, he was trying to open up for oil and gas drilling. Shocker. Now, there's more. Actually, about his time at the Interior, Balish oversaw the department's preparations to hold lease sales on the coastal plain of the 19.3 million acre refuge and to expand drilling on the 22.8 million acre reserve on the west of the refuge. This is, of course, the the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. So now they also explain that the company has been drilling on state lands that lie just outside of these reserves, where the Trump administration is pushing to increase oil and gas development. So again, no shocker, here we've got massive corruption. Now, both sites happen to be home to large numbers of migratory birds, as well as caribou, polar bears, and other wildlife that they are seeking, of course, to protect. But of course, you talk to the Trump administration and the big corporations like polar bears, F the polar bears, F the caribou. We got oil to drill, baby. Now, onto the corruption, right? So now, him working for the oil company that wants to drill in these areas after previously working at the department that wanted to expand drilling into these areas, that would seem like a conflict of interest, wouldn't it? Now, Baelish assures us that that is not the case. He said that even though his new role, he would oversee employees who would work with the federal government on energy policy. He would abide by the Trump's ethic pledge, barring appointees from lobbying their former agencies for 5 years. Now, have you ever seen anyone honor a ethics pledge in the Trump administration? Ethics. Ethics. We're talking about ethics here. This is the most unethical administration I have ever seen. But he makes sure to say, "Well, I'm not going to be lobbying myself. No, no, no. I'm just going to be the supervisor for the rest of the lobbyists." Oh, well, that's the difference. Oh, I see. Okay. No, dude, that's basically the same thing. Sure, you're not going to be out there lobbying yourself, but you're going to be instructing the teams and making connections, using your connections within the federal government in order to help your lobbyist team. Again, not a big difference. So now, one senator, only one, and that's sad, Tom Udall, he looks at this and he's like, that seems like corruption. Maybe I should write a letter. I know, right? Now, he actually did send a letter to Interior's designated ethics official on Wednesday asking that the department provide copies of all ethics filings made by Balish and any notifications of his negotiations for future employment or compensation. He said, quote, I believe the public has a compelling interest in knowing whether the necessary steps were taken to address this potential conflict of interest. Udall, I love you, man, but it's a clear conflict of interest. It's super, super obvious. But look, I understand the caution because we have a government right now that has been captured by giant corporations. So even some of the more obvious forms of corruption, like this, and conflict of interest, they're considered to be normal. Oh no, he pledged that he wouldn't lobby, and he's not actually lobbying; he's just supervising, and that's supposed to make a difference. No, it's clear corruption, and it's absolutely gross. Now here's more pushback for this. Danielle Bryan, executive director of the Project on Government Oversight, said in an interview that the fact that Baelish had been working to make more land available for exploration near Oil Search's ongoing development raises some concerns. Well, you don't say. Bryan said, quote, if Baelish's jump to Oil Search ends up being legal, which is insane in this system, but unfortunately probably will end up being legal, it's further confirmation to me that our laws are simply inadequate. And of course, that's why. It is hard to have confidence that the decisions he was making while he was working for the taxpayers were not impacted by his aspirations or hopes to go to work for a company that was materially affected by his work. To that I say, of course it was. Of course it was. Yes, it's the revolving door. It's the swamp. He got in this position and he's like, okay, how can I help the oil companies? How can I help this company that I could get a job with later, making millions of dollars lobbying or being a supervisor lobbyist? Look, this is the corruption. It is the swamp. It is right in your face. And they're kind of rubbing our faces in it, essentially. When are we going to do something about it? When are we going to end this corruption? I know. Donald Trump talked about ending the corruption. Oh, the Washington swamp. We're going to drain the swamp. He didn't. It's fairly obvious. The swamp is swampier than ever. He was a con artist and somebody who has no problems with the swamp. When are we going to do something about it? When are we going to actually get some ethics reforms? When are we going to actually ban lobbyists? I'm talking lifetime ban. You serve in government, you will not be able to lobby at all. 5-year limit is a joke. Being a supervisor to a group of lobbyists, absolute freaking joke. Give me a break. End the corruption, end lobbyists, get money out of politics. Now, if you're not convinced already that this is bad, that this is corruption, let me give you some more examples of what Baelish did, the kind of relationship he had with this particular oil company. On April 17th, 2018, when he was still in the administration, Baelish had a video call with Kieran Wolf, oil search executive vice president and president for Alaska. Nearly 7 months later, after that video call, Baelish took part in what his calendar described as a, quote, oil search presentation. Oh, no, there's nothing weird about that. This is a private company that's doing a presentation, and he took part in it. It's not as if he was watching the presentation. No, he took part of the presentation. This June, both Baelish and Wolf also appeared as featured speakers during a membership luncheon of the Resource Development Council in Anchorage. All of this is all while he was working in the Interior Department. Like obvious corruption. Obvious. Yes, he was working for them while he was supposed to be working for us. And now he's going to get a fat paycheck. And look, even before he joined the Trump administration, and it's not as if they just picked him because, oh no, you'd be good for the Interior Department. You know what you're doing. You served in Alaska for so long, and you know the area. Maybe that had something to do with it. But before joining the administration, Baelish consistently argued in favor of curbing federal restrictions on energy development in Alaska. More oil, more natural gas. That's what he wanted. That's what he'd been calling for. That's why he got picked. And then when he got picked, he started immediately working for the oil companies in Alaska so that he can get a big cushy job after he helped them fast track development for those lands, for oil and gas development. That's what this is about. If it's not obvious, it's because you don't want to see it. Again, this is funny coming from an administration that said they wanted to drain the swamp. The only thing they're draining is oil wells and putting that money right into their pockets. That's all this administration does. It is a giant con job on the American people. Now, it's funny because there's a quote in here where Baelish says, oh, no. It's not about me getting paid. It's not about any of that. No, it's just about, I just want to help Alaskans live a better life. Now, one of the things about Alaska that is very interesting is there are people there, thanks to Sarah Palin. The one good thing that she actually did, and a lot of people don't know this, is that she basically had the oil companies pay people in Alaska the profits from oil. I know it's insane, right, when you think about it, because Sarah Palin rails against socialism, but here she's like, I hate socialism, but here's some socialism. We're literally going to nationalize these companies through the state government, right? If you're going to do business here in Alaska, you need to give us a big portion of your profits so I can give it back to the people. Kind of funny. So now you could say, but if you develop more oil and gas, then the people are going to get more from it. But that ignores climate change and the costs associated. These very actions, by the way, of developing these lands for oil and gas exploration will lead to more climate change and more negative effects, not just for Alaska, but the rest of the world, not to mention habitat destruction for all of these animals, as if, a lot of people care about that. And you should. You should care about the biodiversity of this planet. But even if you don't care about it, you should care about mutually assured destruction when it comes to climate change. These companies are destroying the habitability of this planet for human beings. And there are politicians and people that are cheering that on because, hey, look, it will be helped temporarily. But in the long term, we're all screwed. But you know what? He won't be around to see it. A lot of these politicians will not be around to see it. Our kids will. But in the meantime, they don't care because they're just going to keep getting paid. Because apparently, money is all that matters to them. Okay. And that's unfortunately the reason that we're destroying the planet, the environment. Not destroying the planet. Planet's going to be here long after we're gone. But what does that say about us? Right? Where are we going to end up? All right. Okay. So, one more story here before we hit the break. Let's go to Jacob Wohl. It's pretty clear. Excuse me. Jacob Wohl is in a little bit of trouble. Now, for those who are not familiar with Wohl, he is known as a blundering conservative who has tried all manners of half-baked political schemes that ended up backfiring spectacularly in his face. It's awesome. So now he has just been due to be arraigned on a felony charge next month, according to court records. Now, it's a felony charge. As the Daily Beast reported early on Wednesday, Wohl and a former business partner are both wanted on a warrant signed in Riverside County on August 19th. Now, let me correct that. They were wanted. That warrant was recalled after Wohl had appeared in court on Wednesday to address it. Now, he was released on his own recognizances until October 24th, which then he will be arraigned on a charge of unlawful sale of securities, according to prosecutors. Now, what did they do? Well, the Daily Beast explains that Wohl and Johnson are alleged to have unlawfully sold securities at one of Wohl's financial companies, Montgomery Assets. Now, remember, Wohl is a pretty young guy. So he's essentially a young, stupid teenager, right? Not saying that all teenagers are stupid. Calm down, people, right? But I'm saying that Wohl himself is not a smart person. He's kind of an idiot, as you can, see when you look at his record. So now, let me give you a quote here from the Daily Beast and the warrant application. In 2016, Wohl and Matthew Johnson represented themselves as members of a company called Montgomery Assets. On July 27, 2016 through August 27 of 2016, Wohl and Johnson offered for sale unqualified securities in violation of California Corporations Code 25-1110 or 110, which has a 3-year statute of limitations and must be told by the issuance of an arrest warrant. So that is fairly clear. They broke the law, and they were to get arrested. So this guy, alleged criminal, but again, also idiot. Though I guess it's kind of par for the course. So let me give you some of the harebrained schemes that he had tried to think up. Now, apparently, Wohl in 2018 had teamed up with Washington lobbyist Jack Berkman for an insane press conference in which they tried to basically smear Robert Mueller, who was the special counsel during the Russia investigation, with a fake sexual assault scandal. Now, these guys were caught trying to recruit people who worked under Mueller to basically come up with these smears for money. Hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars to come out and basically allege Robert Mueller of sexual harassment so that we can, of course, tarnish his image in the public. I'm not exactly sure what the end goal was. Of course, to hurt Robert Mueller, etc., which of course ended up not really being that big of a thing. And it's ridiculous the length that they tried to go, and it ended up blowing up in their face. Now, the pair also attempted to make a similar allegation against Democratic presidential hopeful Pete Buttigieg. So they go after Buttigieg as well. Now, that was foiled after the Daily Beast obtained audio of Wohl and Berkman trying to pressure a potential victim into making a false allegation against Buttigieg. Now, I'm no Buttigieg fan. I'm not feeling the Buttigieg, right? Uh, but man, that is a disgusting, horrible smear, and ridiculous. Now, this isn't the only thing that he has done. He has also, back in February, faked a death threat against himself and then reported it to the Minneapolis police. I remember covering that story. A ridiculous death threat. And this summer, a phone number associated with Wohl was also used to threaten a former GOP campaign worker. Now, to be fair, Wohl says, I wasn't involved on that one. Well, how'd your phone number get there? Oh, that's weird. But anyway, look, he appears to be not very smart and to keep getting himself in trouble. And the California charge against Wohl, by the way, dates back to his pre-political career in finance. Now, when he was in finance, he basically tried to screw people out of their money. Investigators with the National Futures Association had looked into operations of another Wohl company after a client complained that Wohl claimed to have rapidly increased the client's $75,000 investment to $89,000. Ooh, that's a good return, right? It's a very decent return. Now, the client says, great, holy crap, I cashed in. I guess now I'm going to cash out. When he tried, Wohl sent back roughly half of it, about $44,000. Wait, where'd the rest of his money go? Wohl probably lost it. I don't know what happened to it. Nobody knows what happened to it except Jacob Wohl. And now it's even more funny. The investigation also noted in a report that Wohl's promotional materials for the company claimed that Wohl had 9 years of trading experience. Now, think about that, right? Again, Wohl's a pretty, young guy, right? He's not even in his 20s. Or wasn't in his 20s back in 2016 when this happened. So 9 years, that would mean that he's been trading since about 8 or 9 years old. But you'd have to be some sort of super genius with money to do that. I'm not saying those people don't exist. But based on what I've seen from Jacob Wohl, he's definitely not one of those super geniuses. Not a very smart person. Now, Wohl, after that investigation, withdrew from the NFA and eventually received a lifetime ban. Banned. Wow. Wohl has also faced other consequences over his financial work. In 2017, the Arizona Corporation Commission ordered Wohl to pay nearly $33,000 in restitution, as well as an additional $5,000 for alleged violations of securities law. A commission spokeswoman told the Arizona Republic in November of 2018 that Wohl had not made any payments on the money that he owed under the fine. So, Arizona, California, how is this boy not in jail? I don't understand. He's not that old. He is now in his 20s. But he has been a lifelong criminal. Just like Donald Trump and all the other right-wing scammers that rose along with him. Why? It's because crap attracts flies. And Donald Trump, giant piece of crap. The people around him, scammers. Sebastian Gorka, he's like hawking these memory pills or something like that, like Alex Jones, right? Then you got this guy doing alleged securities fraud. Again, scammers attract other scammers. It's amazing. Now, part of me has a little bit of hope, though, right? That maybe if he gets punished enough, that he starts to and grows up, that he learns from his mistakes and actually does become a better person later in life. There is that chance, there is that hope. He's still got time. But so far, based on what I've seen, doesn't look too likely. Sad. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take some member comments and read those. Then we're going to go Steve King versus AOC. And a question where I think Bernie Sanders might have gotten it a little bit wrong, and fair critique, and also a kind of a preview of what we're going to see from the right wing if Bernie Sanders gets the nomination. And so we'll do that right after the break. Stay right here, like and share the stream if you haven't already. We'll be back in a minute. Around the nation. Welcome back around the nation. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got some fun comments here. Let's start with member comment here from Starch Tech. Says, guess what? Thanks to climate change, you may be soon surfing in the beaches of Alaska. And you know what? These corporations are going to market that. Check out the new vacation spot right here in Alaska's beaches. Yeah, only $59.99 to come in and surf. That is our future. Yikes. Let's see. Lee Cox said it's going to come down to television debates with Donald Trump. Bernie has what it takes to go on the attack and defend well, while Biden will try to seem like the more reasonable candidate versus Trump. I think what Biden is going to do is going to do the Hillary. Basically, he's going to attack Donald Trump on personal stuff, right? So that's Biden's plan. He's going to do Hillary 2.0. Now, obviously, that didn't work because we have Donald Trump as president and not Hillary. Whereas Bernie Sanders will go after Donald Trump, both personally and, more importantly, on policy. And so I do believe Bernie Sanders. Look, here's the thing: Bernie Sanders he's nice and plays patty cakes with the establishment, right? Because he knows he's got to get allies in the establishment in order to get anything done. I understand that, right? And so I'm more forgiving for him being nicey nice towards, like, oh, my colleague Nancy, right? Even though they are, of course, hugely opposed, right? And not only that, but of course if he goes like on the attack, like, and he goes hard against members of the establishment, there's going to be more renewed calls to how dare Bernie Sanders be so angry, blah, blah, blah. And the hit pieces, basically, they'll say he's just like what the hit pieces are saying about him, right? And so, okay, whatever. But against Donald Trump, he'll definitely go hard. And I want to see that. I can't wait to see that. All right, more. One more comment here, I should say. Valor Valoy disagrees with my hope, and that's a hope that he will learn his lesson. She says, I don't know, Jeff. Trump was young once and he got worse with age, though he wasn't punished for anything. But people like these are just rotten to the core, and punishment won't change it. Look, I understand what you're saying. Maybe you're right about Wall, but I have seen certain people who are, who have changed. I do believe in the power of redemption, not in a religious context or anything like that, but I do believe that people who messed up and were terrible people once can actually redeem themselves and start to do good in the world. That's my hope for everybody. Obviously, there are people that will never be redeemed. Donald Trump, definitely one of them. And maybe Jacob Wall's one of those people too. But, you can at least hold out the hope. Because if you don't have hope, you ain't got a whole lot in this world. So that's just my thought on that. And you can disagree if you want. Okay. Now, before I get into the stories, please like and share the stream. Very, very important. Okay. With that said, let's go into the next story. All right. Now, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called out Representative Steve King on Wednesday after King shared a photo from a migrant detention center that he claimed proved she had spread fake news about the conditions. And that would be, of course, the picture that you see on my sidebar right now. Sans the human toilet. I added that. I think it's, I think it was obvious. But anyway, so now AOC, she slams King video on Twitter where it showed him basically drinking out of a fountain, a drinking fountain connected to a toilet, right? So now she said this, there's a genre of videos where GOP House members who clearly didn't read sworn testimony that detention sinks were broken, filming themselves drinking out of toilet sinks. They're so anti-immigrant, they risk pink eye to show off that they didn't do the reading. So this was a response, of course, to this tweet from Steve King. He said, no way was AOC objectively honest in her fake news spin about the border. Clickbait for snowflakes. They got her. No, you didn't. Again, this is not in the report. This is a water that it's clearly a water fountain that he's drinking out of, not a toilet bowl, and which they said the toilet bowl was in the reports. Let me give you more context about this, right? So during a visit to the southern border back in July, AOC said that she was told by detainees that they were specifically told that the water fountains were broken. You know, those fountains on top of the toilet, broken, doesn't work. So that the personnel had suggested that they drink from the toilet bowl itself. That is not the same thing as saying, "Oh, I'm drinking from the fountain." No, that's not the same thing. They said, "Drink from the toilet bowl." Now, I'd love to see Steve King do that, but he doesn't because look, Steve King is a disingenuous piece of crap. That's what he is. Now, he also claimed in a town hall in Iowa that he had actually went to that cell where it was reported that migrants were advised that they had to drink out of the toilet. He said, quote, "I took a drink out of there, and it's actually pretty good." Note, he didn't drink from the toilet. Uh, in fact, he said later on, it's not drinking out of the toilet, it's drinking out of the water fountain that's integral with the back of the toilet. Well, then, you didn't disprove anything AOC said. But he's like, got her. Nailed it. Nailed what? The fact that you're a moron? I guess. No, dude. Why don't you actually drink from the toilet and then see how that ends up for you? I'm actually curious to see that. I would love to see that. Or maybe how about you spend some time in a cage after being forced from your home by violence, poverty, or corruption? Okay. Oh, right. That'll never happen because Steve King is lucky enough to have been born white and become incredibly wealthy as a congressman. See, this is why he cannot ever be able to empathize with anyone. This guy thinks he's some sort of victim, by the way. What are you a victim of, Steve? What are you a victim? What's a snowflake here? Looks like you. No, Steve King's disgusting. Let me tell you what. You know what? Can we trade Steve King for a bunch of migrants? I would much rather have them than Steve King. People like him. Maybe they're right when they say, "Oh, liberals just want to replace people," right? You know what? Yeah, I actually do. I want to replace the racists and xenophobes with migrants. Yeah, I'll make that trade any day. You know why? Because it'll actually make this country better to not have the racists in it. They can go off to their own place while we actually, respect the ideals of America. I mean, look at AOC, right? The difference between these politicians, right? So AOC represents all people. She wants to represent everyone, even people who hate her, even people who, say the most vile things about her. She wants to help them. She wants to allow them to have a cleaner world, no pollution, right? Better pay, better jobs. That's what AOC wants. Even for the people who send death threats and rape threats her way, she wants to help everyone. Who does Steve King want to help? Steve King only wants to help a very small, hateful minority of people who feel aggrieved that somebody, at someone who looks different, that actually wants to experience the American dream. That's who Steve King is. He is a disgusting piece of anti-American trash, and I would gladly trade him for 1,000 migrants. Am I clear enough on that? Okay. Now, last night, there was a climate town hall in which featured a lot of the presidential candidates in the Democratic side. So now Bernie Sanders was asked a question and about population during this climate change town hall, and he's getting attacked for his answer. So I want to show you the video uh, of the question and his answer, and we're going to break down. First, I'm going to give you the criticism, and then we're going to break down why I think he might have answered the question incorrectly. So, first, let's take a look.
Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet can
All right. So, had a little bit of a technical issue, a little technical error, but that's okay. So, let's just start that again. All right. Super, super strange. Okay. All right, here we go. Try this again. All right. So last night on CNN, there was a climate change town hall that featured a lot of the Democratic candidates for president. So now Bernie Sanders, of course, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden. So now Bernie Sanders is being attacked for one of his answers to a specific question on population or population control. So now the questioner, identified by CNN as a teacher named Martha Redioff, talked about this. She asked this question, and I want to show it to you right now. Let's take a look.
Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth. I realize this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact. Would you be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature of a plan to address climate catastrophe?
Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. And the Mexico City Agreement, which denies American aid to those organizations around the world that allow women to have abortions or even get involved in birth control, to me is totally absurd. So I think, especially in poor countries around the world, where women do not necessarily want to have large numbers of babies, and where they can have the opportunity through birth control to control the number of kids they have, something I very, very strongly support.
All right. So, look, that was his answer. The answer was fine. Okay. Look, you want to talk about women being able to control their own bodies through both education and access to birth control, as well as access to safe legal abortion. All that is not controversial at all, right? So now, totally decent answer, but ridiculous question. I think this question, a little bit of a trap. And if not, if not a trap, then it was just somebody that had an uneducated question. And I'm going to get into the details of why I think that is. But first, there was immediate outrage. Let me give you an example here. This is CNN host S.E. Cupp, right? So she said this, quote, "How can you not unequivocally say no to the question of whether you support the idea of curbing population growth through abortion to reduce climate change?" Well, watch. This is apparently how. Well, and now, first, okay, he's not saying we should force all people to have abortions for climate change. That's not what he said. You heard what he said. There's the video I just showed you, right? Now, she also adds this. Let's just state for the record, talking about needing population control, again, that's not what he said. Through abortion for the sake of climate is talking about eugenics. The fact that Bernie Sanders is willing to entertain this vile idea is not only disgusting, it should be disqualifying. So that's S.E. Cupp. Then we have the Daily Wire saying this: yuck, Bernie Sanders says yes to abortions related to population control for the climate's sake. Now, again, you saw this. You saw the answer. Empowering women, giving them choices over their own body, whether or not they want to have as many children or not. Right? Okay. That should be obvious what the answer to that is, right? And it was a great answer. But like I said, that question was not a good question, and there's no good way to answer that question. Uh, it, and because look, you're going to get criticism. Obviously, Bernie Sanders is going to get criticism no matter what he says, right? But here you have the right wing, and this is a preview of what's to come, calling him racist, communist, basically Stalin, using eugenics, et cetera, when in reality, of course, that's not the case at all. So this kind of smears that's going to come at him if he becomes the presidential nominee. So be prepared for it, right? So now let me get into why the question was flawed. This whole thing, the whole premise of the question is overpopulation is driving climate change. That's not true. Overpopulation being a climate problem is actually a myth. That's even spread by people who mean well, right? But the facts just don't support that. Um, they also blame a lot of things like, overpopulation leads to food shortages, or if we allow people to continue to have children without any sort of population control, like China, we're going to run out of food. We're already overusing farmland, et cetera, right? In reality, no. In the US, our net agricultural exports actually account for about 25% of the physical volume of agricultural production. Meaning that if we did not export that 25% of food, assuming that, of course, everything stays the same, consumption, land use, technology, the United States could actually comfortably feed about 400 million people. Now, are we going to have 400 million people? No, not in the United States. In fact, our birth rates are staying relatively low. Okay. Like most modern industrial countries, we have lower birth rates than the rest of the world. Okay. Than the developing world, like India and China, et cetera, which, of course, Bernie Sanders in his answer says, look, we should absolutely promote birth control in those areas so that women can become empowered and they can make their own choices about having families. Which, if you don't have access to birth control or education, unfortunately, you're going to end up having a lot of children that you don't necessarily want, or and again, I don't want to get like too tricky into this, because then the right wing's going to come after me for whatever. Not like they already don't, but it's just allowing women to basically have their own choices and allow them to get educated, et cetera. And when you have educated women in a modern industrial society, they're more successful and usually end up having a few less children. And that's not to say that you can't have a lot of children and also be successful, because you can also do that. Again, there's the nuances here, right? But nobody seems to know nuance, or nobody seems to practice nuance. But anyway, so now, again, we could feed 400 million people with no changes whatsoever with our current way, right? Not only that, but there's actually scientific fact that shows that no amount of population control in the United States and around the world would actually have a big impact on emissions. It's not people having too many children that messes with the environment. No, the real problem here is that 70% of the emissions in the US come from giant corporations. That's the problem. Now, as far as resource allocation, we don't have a resource problem. We have a resource allocation problem, right? Resources are hoarded by the corporations and the rich, and it's more than they'll ever need. And they burn through them, of course, in order to make things that are planned obsolescence, right? To continue consuming, and that's a problem with capitalism as well, right? So you can get off into a lot of different tangents about this, about some of the problems with overconsumption of stuff that we don't necessarily need, being sustainable, and carbon emissions, etc. Right? So it's not overpopulation. So that question just seems wrong. His point about empowering women is absolutely right. So, you know, look, he's not a believer in eugenics. It's a ridiculous charge. Um, and so what they're doing is that they're just coming at him with ridiculous smears. And so this is what's going to happen. You're going to see this a lot from the right wing, from the people backed by giant corporations, ironically, who don't want Bernie Sanders to become the nominee and become the president because they fear they'll get taxed more. And they will not be able to pollute, which is actually the real danger to humanity and the planet itself. So now you know. All right. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me. That technical issue, that was my stream software crashing. It wasn't anybody messing with my stuff. I don't know why it crashed, but I've been having problems with it lately. So maybe I'll switch to something else. Okay, guys. Thank you. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please share our videos as well. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.